All right, this is Mike Fish, and if you're watching this, you probably know this is lesson 8 of section 1 of our short-term rental training. Section 1 is about analyzing a property for potential rental income. And today we're going to dive deeper into understanding those outside amenities. And I want to stress there are few properties that I've ever seen that have everything we talk about. We provide step-by-step lists to develop short-term rentals. I've personally been involved in developing well over 60 from scratch and helping other people as well in at various levels. But what we're talking about here is ideals, right? So if you've got a property, you can kind of analyze where do you fit into that spectrum, places that are netting 30,000, or are you a place that can net 100,000 or 100,000 plus? What does it take, to target the majority of our guests, right? Because obviously there's always exceptions, but we have a core, we have a core audience that we're targeting. So let's talk about that a bit. So again, I don't want to discourage anyone. There's exceptions to all this, and so I'm going to start with that sandy beach, right? Nice little swimming beach, right? I have great rentals that have absolutely no beach at all, right? But that beach is probably worth on average a good $100 a day in the summer, if not more. So it's a consideration if you're bringing in $10,000–$15,000 or more because you've got a nice little swimming beach. Having a nice bottom to the lake is great. That's step one. Lots of places do well with that. If you've got a nice little sand beach for the smaller kids to set on, make sand castles, that's phenomenal. Sometimes you can take the property, you can cut one out and put in a beach. You need to double check that with the DNR. I've had multiple people where the DNR said, nope, you're not doing it here. So the first amenity we want to talk about from analyzing the outside is it swimmable? Does it have any type of nice beach? The second thing is the dock, and of course you want a nice dock. People need to be able to tie their boats onto it. It's very important to consider and figure out when the lake is a little bit lower, what is the depth at the end of that dock. I've got a couple properties where the depth goes down to a foot. You can't even bring a boat to it, and you need to figure that out if you're going to buy a property, right? So we're looking at swimming off the dock, tying a boat to the dock. Some people have a boat lift. A boat lift can be a big deal for certain guests. Very few places I've managed let the guests use the boat lift because people don't know what they're doing. They throw the wrong boat on it. It can get damaged, etc. But it is something to consider. A boat lift, certain guests gravitate to that and love being able to put their boat up to not have to worry about it. Something to consider. Another thing to consider is there a ramp? Is there space to put in a boat landing, which can be huge depending on the lake. I've got 3 places that currently have boat landings. People use them, people love them, big plus, something to kind of keep on the radar as you're looking. Is there a space to put in a boat landing? Talking a little bit more about that dock and the beach, is there a place to hang out down by the beach? Now, there's exceptions. I've managed very successful places with 150 steps and a tram going straight down to the lake. There's exceptions, but having an area, is there dock seating? Can you put benches? Can you put a hammock lakeside? Can you put some nice chairs around the beach, so people can watch as people are, the kids are playing on the beach, etc. These are all considerations that really can make the difference between an okay rental, a good rental, or a phenomenal rental. Of course, is there an area for a fire pit? Nice pathway going down to there. Fire pit is always nice. But is there an area for a fire pit? Is there a place down there maybe to have firewood? Can you have reasonable seating around that fire pit? Is there room maybe to put a patio underneath the fire pit? A lot of places that I managed have just rocks in a yard, and then the guests and the neighbors and the owners are all a little bit worried about fire spreading. So that's a whole other video. But there's ways to do a fire pit that's safe, and you can have rules around that fire pit that even keep the neighbors happy. Okay, so decks and patios, what's the view from that deck? Again, is there adequate dining for the number of sleeping capacity that's managed? Is there room, of course, for a grill? We've started adding flat tops this year. People love the flat tops as well, probably even more than the grills. You know, stringing lights is huge. I just want to mention it's something magical about it in the summer, where there's down the pathways, around the fire pit, you know, around the deck. Just something to consider. What's that thing going to look like in the evening? Something to consider. Um, is there an area for outside games? We're talking. I total other video to dig into this, but there are several types of outside games that people absolutely love. Of course, spike ball and you know, bean bags, or you know, people call them cornhole. Those types of games, easy to set up a horseshoe area. You know, set up horseshoes. Is there room for people to play in the yard? That's a huge plus when you're looking at these things. Is it going to be pet friendly? And is it pet friendly? Is there an area where you can have a little bit of a fenced in yard so they don't have to worry about the dogs 24/7? I've got 2 places that have specific fenced in areas for pets. It almost carries them. Like, people love them. To, you know, to have an area that your dog can run around a little bit, go, you know, go to the bathroom. And again, that's a whole other video we'll do about how to handle pets as far as the rules and everything to do with that. But it's something to consider when you're looking at these things. Of course, we love hot tubs, saunas. I've got a guy on Go I'm talking to that's looking at even putting an ice bath on his place. All things to consider. Does it have that layout now that the state finally officially allows us to have hot tubs? It's a bigger consideration for some people. Fish cleaning. You know, are you going to have a fish cleaning station? A lot of our owners will recommend one that you just order off of Amazon. You hook a hose up, but you don't want them cleaning fish in the house if they're bringing fish back, right? People love, you know, outdoor showers is a consideration. I would say this: having at least a foot washing station is a great thing that people appreciate. So many things aren't necessarily things that, you know, they're nice for the owner, they're nice for the property, but guests appreciate them too. Most guests want to be clean. They don't want to trash the house. Having things like a foot washing station, or even an outside shower, so when kids, you know, are done swimming, they can jump in an outside shower. You know what, you very appreciated by guests. You know, and of course, having the room and space to have everything, you know, from the kayaks to the canoes to the paddle boards, you know, all these things really add up. And does the property lend itself to that? All things to consider. Another thing I would call an amenity, and this might not be a traditional amenity, but I assure you, it has everything to do with the reviews, everything to do with guest satisfaction, is does the property have reasonable space to breathe, reasonable privacy for the capacity? Now, in Crow Wing, for example, we can technically have as many daytime guests as we have as nighttime, as long as they're off the property by nightfall. That doesn't necessarily work, and I've learned that through experience over the years. I had a property on North Lawn we still manage, very successful. By the way, I love the neighbors, very friendly. Actually, some of the more friendly neighbors I've got right now. But the capacity of it was 13, and so in the day we're originally allowing 13, so there's 26, and guests will always push it a little bit, so sometimes maybe there's 30 something for a couple hours in the day, and it's got a very tight lot with neighbors on both sides. It was just too much. So on some properties we actually allow daytime guests only half capacity of nighttime guests, and I've actually ran properties where I don't allow any extra guests. It hurts the bookings, but my point being, you know, some lots lend itself to a certain privacy. Other lots, if people are out in the yard, they feel like the neighbors are 10 feet away staring at them. And this is so I would put, even though it's not a traditional amenity in this industry, I would put privacy is absolutely an amenity that you need to consider when you're looking at a property. Because the reality is, if the neighbors are against you, it at least takes the fun out of it. That's a whole other training, how we work with neighbors and we build those relationships and build that trust and we make this work. for the neighbors. But that being said, it's a big consideration. I had a property 2 years ago where the neighbors were so hostile, we put up a 6-foot privacy fence all the way down the property line. And let me tell you, the neighbors weren't happy about it. The guests appreciated it. So this is something to consider when you're looking at a property, is the layout of that yard and the privacy involved in it. I mean, are people going to be comfortable hanging out there and spending their vacation in that yard, right? So again, this is Mike Fish. Thank you for taking the time to watch us. Depending on where you see it, please subscribe, like the video, stay in touch. Again, this is lesson 8 of section 1. We have many trainings and videos mapped out that we'll be putting out, and we hope that this is a great value to folks that are possibly looking for a property, you know, and that's what we do. We'll help you find a property, help you buy it, develop these, possibly have a property and they're going, boy, should we do short-term rental? What does that look like? Or maybe have a vacation rental that just isn't successful. These trainings will hopefully be a great help for the industry in general in this area, and I greatly appreciate your time.